युवा देश है। विश्व में हमने युवाओं की आईटी एनर्जी के माध्यम से अपना एक रुतबा खड़ा किया है और भारत इसके बाद के लिए गर्व कर सकता है। दुनिया में हम आंख में आंख मिला करके बात कर सकते हैं। और ये मेरा साथ मैं हमेशा कहता आया हूं, आईटी प्लस आईटी इज इक्वल टू आईटी। इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी प्लस इंडियन टैलेंट इज इक्वल टू इंडिया टुमारो।
Hello, very good afternoon. सभी को नमस्कार. A warm welcome to the 19th World Education Summit, School Education, 23rd to 26th June, and we are on the first day of this School Education Summit. And I would like to welcome our speakers for our session. So the session topic is Bridging the Digital and Economic Divide in Education, National Education Policy 2020 Perspective. The topic is very informative and very deliberative. So for this topic, I would like to introduce the speakers of this session, Mr. Dheeraj Mehrotra, Principal, NPS International School, Guwahati. Welcome, Dheeraj sir. Welcome, Dr. Dheeraj sir, for giving your precious time to World Education Summit. Dr. Sarada Chandrasekaran, Director, Whitefield Global School, Bangalore. Welcome, Dr. Sarada. Welcome to the 19th World Education Summit. Thank you for giving your precious time. Dr. Usha Reddy, CEO, Meridian Group of Schools, Hyderabad. Dr. Usha Reddy, welcome. Welcome to the 19th World Education Summit. Captain Alokesh, Principal, Birla Public School, Pilani. Welcome, Alokesh sir. Welcome to the 19th World Education Summit. And I would like to welcome our speaker and moderator, Lieutenant Colonel A. Sekhar, Chief Development Officer, Jagran Education Foundation. Welcome, Sekhar sir. Welcome to the World Education Summit. And thank you for joining us in summit. I would like to request all our audience, if you have any questions in your mind, please put your live. All our speakers have given their precious time to us, so please don't hesitate, put your questions so that all the speakers can take live. Sekhar sir, over to you.
Am I audible?
Yes sir, loud and clear.
Okay. Good afternoon, namaste, namaskar, kushamdeen, salam alaikum. Thank you for spending this Wednesday afternoon with all of us. It's a pleasure and privilege to be here moderating this session, Digital Economic Divide. So let's come to the point almost straight away. We are talking about it in the context of the national education policy. But I would rather expand the discussion a little bit more. Someday later, 10, 20, 30, 40 years later, when the pandemic history is being written, there will be at least one statement from March 2020 where in about 72 hours, we all went digital. Did we understand what it was? God alone knows, at least at the initial phase. The second part of it was, I've always said that it's easier to modify Indian armed forces. Teachers are among the most difficult to change. In that context, it was a change which was most welcome. However, a country like India, our population is 30 crores. Our student population is 320 million, 32 crores. America's total population is 33 crores. Now, in this context, to educate the country, to make them come up to a literary level which we are all comfortable with, or a skill level, is, to put it very mildly, a humongous challenge. Yeah. Somebody's microphone is on. Can you just mute it? Plenty of noise coming up. I'll be grateful if you can put it on mute. Thank you. So, therefore, in this context, the tsunami, or what I would call the black swan event of COVID-19, has only exacerbated whatever digital and economic divides we had. The latest CMI study talks about 23 crore Indians pushed towards poverty, 97% of Indians having lost significant amount of their income. The real numbers could be much harsher. This is the context. Plus, all of us are running part of schools, colleges, everywhere else. The challenges of learning and learning outcomes are even bigger. With this brief introduction, let me now get to the questions. This is an equal opportunity panel, two ladies and two gentlemen. Normally doesn't come that way, the ladies dominate. And with Seema, for some reason, I wish Seema would have been here, she would have added value. So let me, like a true soldier, start off with the ladies only. Dr. Sarada, you take the headlined topic, and let me go beyond NEP 2020. Let's keep that aside for now. What the digital situation in your perspective before March 2020, and what is it today? Set the stage. You have about a minute and a half. You have to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, and good afternoon to all of you. I love to tell a very short and quick story before I go into the point. This I already shared in another platform also. It seems once one man went to a foreign country long, long ago, saw a multi-storied building, came back to his own town and made that multi-storied building. But he did not know that he has to put a lift to go to the 10th or 15th floor. So there was no lift. People were very worried that how to go to 15th floor or 10th floor or any floor. So they decided they will call some donkeys, and they will hire the donkeys, and the donkeys will carry the weight as well as the people to those floors, and whatever money the donkey owner gets, he will give some to this entire association and some to himself he will keep. So everybody was happy. After some time, this youngster came, and they thought that we should know something more. They came back, they understood that there is something called a lift, and they installed a lift. Now what happened is people were very upset. You want to kill us? What if the lift drops? How dangerous this is? And you are actually stealing our money. The money which we are getting for our association is going away, because if you don't put a donkey, you don't get, but you need to put money. So there were heavy fights, heavy arguments. Then finally they came to some kind of an understanding. Okay, those of you who are scared can sit on the donkey, and the donkey will get into the lift and it will go up. Okay, and those of you who are not, you can use the lift as well. March 2020, we were all almost across the country, we were all on donkeys before that, and then the donkeys went into the lift. Then we have left the donkey aside. We started using the lift. This is, I'm talking about the schools of haves. What about the schools who are not have-nots, who are have-nots? Now, I had an actual opportunity to meet a person who is working in a very remote area in Tamil Nadu in one of such conferences. What he told is that entire village, his church is there where he is the principal, and it seems the whole village has got only 5 mobiles. So he used to take the numbers of these 5 people and send a WhatsApp. Gather these students at your places. So I will make my teachers sit wherever they are in my church at different places, so that they will teach through this mobile, and the group of 5 can learn in your own places with that. That is the only way I could connect, he said. Now, there are such people who somehow managed. There are some people who have used public address system so that the whole village can hear what the teaching is happening. And there are some places they have managed with the WhatsApp. There are some places they could not get anything at all. Today, there are teachers who are not able to reach out because of the low connectivity. There are teachers who are able to manage. Even I had a problem before I logged in, because whatever have or have not, sometimes internet can be very adamant, or the whole system can be adamant, and it can just throw us off. So in such period, millions of children sitting behind this screen, seeing the teacher and learning or not learning is a challenge we are facing, because by the end of this pandemic, if we measure the learning gaps, they are going to be quite huge. So, sir, I cannot hear you. You are muted, sir.
Come to that a little later. You have set the stage. Learning gaps are a huge part of the discussion. Yes.
Yes.
Now from Bangalore to Guwahati, Dr. Mehrotra. It's been a very evocative start. I don't know whether I agree with the donkey, whether I'll have to find out how digitally empowered the donkey is. Leaving that aside, what is the picture? Do you agree with what she has said? How do you see it from your perch in Guwahati? The next minute and a half for you.
Well, Sekhar sir rightly said by ma'am, it is every house story. At every digital platform we are talking about, the necessity is the connect. The necessity is the learning should go on the very way. The approach is quite unique. Of course, we never dreamt of teaching with no children, with no physical classroom, and it has made it possible. The digital maturity index has improved for schools now, and they have been catering to quality deliveries in a big way. We are prepared for declaration of the 10th and the 12th results. At least we have some benchmark to deliver, with some notion of delivery from the side of the children also. And the pandemic has forced emergency investment to connect all students to digital learning opportunities, but holes remain in access and training for sure. And I fully agree with madam, the story what she told. And of course, when we talk about the upliftment, the new age learning, the old story of the monkey and the cap seller comes with the grandson who became the cap seller as well. And he tried to do the same thing. Instead, the monkeys came down, didn't throw any cap, instead gave him a slap and said, I also have a grandfather. Yeah. Coming to the fact that we can't be delivering what has been delivered, but for sure, teachers have equipped themselves to a street smart learning, and this has really brought them to a taste of learning, to a spectrum of learning, and we all are fully prepared to monitor that form of learning as and when required, as suggested by the NEP also. The schools need to prepare themselves.
We'll come to NEP later, sir. We just said that. So, yeah. So from Guwahati, let's move ahead. You have painted a much sunnier picture. Obviously, the sun rises much earlier in Assam. You have painted a much sunnier picture. I would, to play the devil's advocate, hasten to disagree. The minimum amount of time which a student is going to lose digitally, the average amount of learning loss which has been described, somebody's mobile is on, the system is on, can you just mute yourself? Yeah. Here, it comes down to minimum of 3 months. And sometimes the gaps are closer to 9 months. So there are challenges, we'll tackle that. So now to Dr. Usha Reddy. From where you are, we have had two perspectives. One, in terms of the haves and the have-nots. The other, the ability of the teacher to have reached across. And Dr. Dheeraj is much more optimistic. What is your take? I would request you to focus much more on the digital economic divide together, and what is your reading of it? A minute and a half.
Thank you so much. Well, I think at least we are on one page when we agree to it that there is a digital divide. Okay, even when it comes to schools in the city, like was rightly said during the pandemic, overnight, when we thought that teachers go on teaching what they ought to do in the same manner, transferring all their, suddenly teaching and learning to the online platform happened, but at a slow pace. I would say that some schools were more prepared than others, and we were one of those fortunate ones. But we had a set of challenges, and I wouldn't want to put it aside. I think the main challenge also came from the parents' homes, where they were working from home and yet had to sit next to their children, especially the younger ones. That was a major challenge. Bandwidth being inadequate, and suddenly that to increase that was another challenge. If they had 3 children not having adequate gadgets when school timing is similar or same time, that was another challenge we faced. But this year over, and all these teething problems have been, kind of addressed. Teachers have been, see, when you look at a problem and you're talking of an economic divide, I would look at infrastructure as one and skills as another. So I think now the infrastructure part of it, at least in the cities and at homes of parents, has all been in place. The skills of the teachers too, for some extent, has been upgraded. And so they've become a little more comfortable with this. In fact, they're getting pretty comfortable with it, I should say. But when it comes to the rural sector, and we've adopted a lot of government schools, so I know what the situation is like. Neither do they have the gadgets, nor do the teachers have the skills or the bandwidth to teach them online. And also they have basic problems like no electricity in the villages. Okay, so from where do we begin? So we are first beginning at a premise where we accept that this is the diverse country that we live in. So what can be done? So I think this, public and private partnerships are the best thing. So we continue to do the service.
We'll come to that. We'll come to that. How to work roads, because I'm just setting the initial thing so that we are onto a certain degree of unanimity. Thank you.
Right.
Now we go to Captain Sen. You run a residential school. What are the very different challenges you faced? The digital divide, how you access them, and very different from the other 3 perspectives. Here is the CEO talking about how she was more comfortable and the rural school she has adopted. From basic things like, roti, we always say roti, kapda, makan. Today, we have to talk about roti, kapda, makan and internet for even basic survival. So what is your take? Do you agree with the other 3 panelists? If so, why? If not, why? Captain Sen. You are not audible, sir.
Good evening to all my colleague panelists here. Incidentally, all the 4 of us, we actually hail from the cities or big places. I am not from really a city, but then I have the privilege of having all the privileges of privileged schools of a city, like any city schools have. But however, I'm sure that all of us, we have our experience with what is happening to the underprivileged schools. Like as Dr. Reddy, Mrs. Reddy said, they have adopted the government school. We too have adopted the government school. So during the entire period, we have got to know what are the challenges of the government schools or that kind of schools which are there. And coming to our kind of school, since you asked, which is typical kind of challenges of residential schools. Residential schools actually have people from across the country. And across the country, I have the students from the Northeast. I have the students from the remote areas of Bihar. I have got the students from remote areas of Madhya Pradesh. You can't say they may not be having economically, they may be sound, but then culturally and even digitally also, there is a big gap for them. And where the internet is actually, there is no internet. Devices are there, they're capable of buying the devices, but the internet is not there. And then even electricity supply also, there is an irregular electricity supply which is there. So even though I am one of those schools, where parents having the financial capacity above certain level can put their children. Even then also, my school faced a lot of problem. I would say about 10% to 15% of my students could not connect. They could not connect. They had to be sent very differently. And teachers were gradually, they are adapting to these kind of situations because you can't deprive. After all, they are our students. You can't deprive. So they also had to face this. The other kinds of problems which we faced were, I mean, ours is being a boarding school. Obviously, boarding school, the parents have got a tendency, they dump everything on the teacher because this becomes the second home. So obviously, they were not able to handle and manage the constant, this is the problem of the day school as well. The constant, few days back, I took the parent teachers meeting, the constant complaint which was coming from the parent.
We'll come to that. Parental, all these angles we'll cover separately. We'll go.
Okay.
Yeah, now that the big picture is clear, now let me start off with the other lady. Now she leads this question. You have covered your school, you have covered the rural schools. Now let's starkly look at the divide clearly. You have these rural schools with you. What are the 5 principal challenges you faced vis-a-vis the students, the teachers, and the accessibility?
Is that question to me,
Colonel? Yes, Dr.
Okay.
Usha.
Yes. So I think if I were to point out on the 5 main things that I would like to note here are, yes, one is infrastructure, like I was saying. So there's a lack of infrastructure in terms of how you can deliver classes online. So for that, I think some of the projects that we've done is, if you realize in cities, people keep buying the latest band of cell phones, and the other brand will be just in the, in the drawer, probably just lying there. So saying that social service at this point in time is to actually donate those things, and that's, something that could help them. But like the bigger challenges, like I said, are in getting the internet facility itself going and the electricity. For that, I think, the teachers, their skills in using and delivering online classes, some amount of teacher training obviously was one of the key factors, because they were not in a position to adapt to it as quickly as the teachers in the cities would do it. The third major problem is, suppose there was one gadget, the gender bias also was taking the forefront here, where the parents said that let the boy use it and not the girl. So that was really shocking, and a lot of awareness had to come in to, kind of break that, mindset, as I would like to call it. And, see, the thing is, we're not going as far as assessments here, but yes, assessments were a challenge. But one beauty and not a negative point is that people out there with a few gadgets were able to share as a community, because that's all that they can afford. So a group of students coming together using that one gadget, maintaining social distance, one teacher conducting it for, 5-6 batches of people at different times in the day. I think some beautiful things have happened. So when we look at India on the rise, I would say that teachers are definitely out there also making an impact.
Great. And it's fascinating to hear how problems and solutions you handled it together. One of the challenges I heard, and private teachers were cribbing left, right, and center. Government teachers were paid on time, and they didn't have the kind of answerability, accountability to it. Dr. Reddy, did you sense that? What was the response from the teachers? How motivated were they?
See, I think in every sector, you will have some that are excellent, and you'll have some leg pullers, as I call them, who will demotivate the others and stop them from doing it as well. And yes, I think, their jobs are secure, but I think it's how you actually approach them. And, not to say that they're not doing something, but how they should be doing it and how they're actually helping kids. Praise them, and some of that helps.
No, that helps. You are quickly going into a solution. I just want a specific. What was the ratio? I mean, normally in a school, 10, 20, 30, 40, how was the balance between?
I would definitely say it would be around 20% of them, definitely 20.
20 were less than motivated, right?
Yes.
80 were motivated. That's a pretty good number to have.
Pretty good number, but if you look at some of them who were already tech savvy, I would say 40% were already quite tech savvy. Like with one shot, they were able to grasp. But the other 40% who are willing, the skills part of it had to be, kind of strengthened. 20, of course, that you're dealing with, they will give you a little bit of trouble. But when they see the larger majority doing, they'll fall in line.
Yeah, fair. Okay, so 20% real Dukhi Atmas who didn't want to do it, which is fair. We look at it that way. Okay, now we go straight to Dr. Mehrotra. Now you pick it up. Now we have set the stage, the divide is there, all these things are there. What would you suggest to Dr. Reddy and her principals in rural schools in terms of reducing this divide beyond asking for $10 billion? What are the ways you can improve that from the context she's there? Over to you, sir.
Well, sir rightly said. I would say that the first fallout is the lack of training, the lack of access and the lack of training. So what comes as a priority is to talk about the digital divide, referring to the inequality in access to technology that exists between the communities, rightly pointed by her. And this is all because of the regional and the demographic differences, particularly on social economic groups. But on the go, one of our goals as teachers and heads of schools is to bridge that digital divide so that students can acquire the digital skills, the technological skills. Also from the side of the teachers, they will need to be successful as adults, for particularly the groups, the students.
How will you do it, sir? How will you do it? What have
the
you done in your
purpose, how we can go about doing it is to have a mass deliberation. We can ask for devices. We can ask for somewhat like under CSR. We can ask and tie up with companies who can, donate some of the devices. On larger extent, we can go for mass screen-based learning, wherein they can sit with distancing and learn about it. More of IT-based learning and delivering that digital quotient of understanding. And I revisit on what I said earlier was about the digital maturity index. The DMI for schools need to be generated. They can sign up for CSR, the corporate social responsibility initiatives, and there are open vistas available. Even government is coming up with wonderful initiatives on the very per se. So I believe this is the need of the hour, and holistic gendered digital approach that calls for multi-stakeholder partnership and investment for digital inclusion is a priority. And this is the handshake which you need to do.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Captain Sen, you are part of Birla. He talks about CSR. Are we, as the elite of the nation in terms of education, are we really serious about the digital and economic divide? Are we giving them lip service? Are we serious about bringing in rural schools and developing them better? Or are we good at only discussing this in such forums and saying, oh, mar gaya, lut gaya, barbad ho gaya? Is that a fair comment when I say that the elite tends to be very patronizing about it? Captain said.
Yeah, what happened in terms of your infrastructure, we were quite comfortable. In fact, technology-wise, we were quite comfortable. I mean, using the technology in the classroom. But with the pandemic coming, the whole gamut, the whole dynamics of the teaching learning, in the classroom changed. So even though the teachers were able to learn quite quickly, they were tech savvy already, but they learned how to teach on different types of your platform, the control, but then how to interact with the emotions of the children sitting on the other side. There was a big gap, and teachers continue to, showing the gaps in all these things, because finally, unless that connectivity is not, I'm not talking about the internet connectivity, I'm talking about the connectivity between the teacher and the pupils. Unless that connectivity is established, that was the big challenge. This gap, which was their connectivity gap, is getting reduced, and teachers were actually given a lot of training on these aspects, especially technology aspect, less in my school, but these aspects, a lot of discussion, a lot of specialists or experts coming, basically the psychologists, and even the parents also actually pitched in We had a session with the parents, and it is not only the student, it is actually with the parents also, how to handle them. So this was a big challenge. I'm sure all my other three panelists will agree with me. This was a big challenge.
Right. Dr. Sarada, let's move away from defining the problem and let's move ahead into some of the aspects which we know. Digital divide or not there is learning loss. We have not, despite our best efforts, despite giving millions and billions of dollars to Microsoft and WebEx, we have to admit that physical online schooling is relevant. And thank goodness for that. At least I can see that there is grudging respect for the teacher now, rather than saying, especially in cities like Bangalore, where the IT crowd is quick to say that I've also been to a school, I know to teach better. From there, we are into a much better space. But the question is, irrespective of the digital and economic divide, I'll request you to focus on the real learning loss. Last year, 2020, we started. We are not going to have real physical classes for 24 months. We have cut down on the syllabi. We are doing a lot of gymnastics. So how will you look at a student now? What is the learning loss and how can we bridge it? Longer question, Dr. Sarada.
Thank you very much for asking me something which I love to talk about, because this is which worries me also, because first thing is that the child is missing the socialization. The child is missing the complete physical connect, and the schools are not just for learning what is there, and the schools are also for enjoyment for the children, the nudging, the hiding, the talking, the rolling, the laugh. This is one part, one gap which the child is facing. Second thing is that today the child has the gadget in the hand. When the child doesn't want to listen, the child can switch off the mic, switch off the complete audio video and go around. So how will the teacher have a control? So what I'm seeing is that even today, we constantly have some kind of a diagnostic activities to identify the gaps. So whenever we are having such diagnostic activities with some kind of tools we use, and in that again we go to the only oral answering, verbal answering, and less of writing, so that the child will not feel bad to write or get scared to write, still I can see there is a huge gap in the learning. What scares me today is, after the physical school starts, the first problem the teacher and the child will have is that they cannot mute each other. Number one problem. Number two problem is the child has lost interest in writing. Now the child is more typing. The child is more into uploading. The child is more into exploring. So everybody has to go to that, or again go back to giving that kind of a dexterity to the child. This is another area which worries me, because how many can go back to this kind of a system is my worry. Third major thing which I'm seeing the gap is that because of whatever is the internet, bandwidth, connectivity, the keywords are always missing when the teacher is speaking. And the child is receiving only a part of it, not completely. So how are we going to fill in the gap? So once the school comes physically, first the school has to concentrate on the social behavior, acceptance of each other. Second thing is the dexterity of writing again should be brought back, if at all we are concentrating on the same for the remaining part of the life, or whatever is the new mode we are adopting. And the third main thing is that accept the child with so much of a learning gap, which the child is going to have without the child's knowledge, without the parent knowledge, without the teacher's knowledge, because it's not because we have cropped the syllabi. It is because the child is listening what the child wants to listen, and the teacher is delivering whatever she can deliver. That's the gap.
Whatever she sometimes wants to deliver also. We look at it that way. Right. So a few questions coming up before I go to the next part. To Dr. Usha, provocative question. Which digitization technology eliminate the need for teachers?
I don't think so at all. Because I don't think so at all. See, because right now we are in a situation if let's say that we don't need the teachers, then there's lots on YouTube, and without the teacher, the online classes could have gone on. But that's not the way it is, because the child will definitely need, a guiding hand and somebody who can explain to them and, do that hand holding. So I do believe that, if we were to bridge this digital divide, then technology will play a great role in making it more equitable in terms of bringing down costs. But I definitely don't think that the importance of a teacher would come down.
Okay, Kapil Sani, Kundan Vidya Mandir. Hope you have heard her answer, but I'll push you further. Artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented reality. 2047, 100 years of Indian independence. Will we have more teachers in the classrooms or less teachers, Dr. Usha Reddy?
See, I do believe that there will be a spectrum of society who would feel that let my child learn. Even now you have a 12-year-old child who's finishing up, going to YouTube, learning on his own and becoming a postgraduate. But what is the percentage of such children? And learning in terms of just what is there in your curricula is not the only learning. As my colleague Sarada was also mentioning, it is the bonding with friends, it's the networking, it is the character building.
I'm only focusing on the teacher.
Yes, for the teachers as well.
No,
see, the teacher's value comes in. Pardon?
I agree. My point is artificial intelligence, augmented reality, virtual reality, and whatever else comes in. So, will the principal become the chief learning officer? And with obesity and other issues coming in, will the physical education director become more important? I'm just asking you whether when you have a teacher who is delivering what is available, he or she becomes less relevant because information providers have no value. So in that context, will the teacher, he or she who is in it today, as of today, will she survive?
I think, that depends on society to society. And I think in India, I think this whole cultural scenario of wanting to send your child to school to learn whatever they ought to learn. Whether, see, now you can, through technology, you can have one good teacher, replicate your 12 sections also and take the classes. But I don't look at that. I don't think for that, any parent will send the child over to your school. And then you could have a proxy principal in 12 schools also. That you may sit at home. Why would you come to physically to a school?
Absolutely. I mean, my belief is future would be 3 days of physical schooling, 2 days online, and 1 day of sport. And sport will become more important because already 25% of Indian children are obese, not to mention many of them overweight. Okay. Next question is to Captain Sen. With the advancements in digital learning, what areas do you think students should focus in the coming times? Amit Gupta, Ketan Public School, Sahidabad. Captain Sen. Sir, you have to unmute yourself. Unmute.
Yeah. First of all, I will share my experience in the school. Incidentally, in the state of Rajasthan, we got the opportunity to run the physical school from middle of January till about 3rd week of April. When again second surge came, we had to send the students back. I will tell you what happened. We had to change our mindset. We had to recalibrate in our thinking. And finally, the school had to make the entire campus, including the hostel, as Wi-Fi campus completely. We allowed the mobile phones were banned actually in boarding schools. I mean, generally boarding school and my school, it was banned. But then we allowed everyone. There's something called about new normal. And we allowed everyone. Now the kind of thing which happened was like it became, actually we reached a new normal. In the sense, the teachers continue to do their job in the classroom and outside classroom. The advantage was all these gadgets or the new normal actually came as a supplement. In a boarding school, what happens in the evening, if a teacher has to take the classes, he actually tells so-and-so, people, you come, I'm taking class in this classroom or in this particular, house means hostel ka jo reading room. I'm taking class, so you come here after dinner or before dinner, whatever. Now that is not there. He just sends a message on the mobile, I'm taking class. It could be from his home and you sit down and the students are sitting down. So this pandemic also has come as a big opportunity for the schools.
The specific question is, what are the skill sets students could focus in the coming times? So please make your answer student specific, sir.
the skill sets are that they should be able to focus into their their gadgets. They should be able to focus into their whatever is necessary for them, which is not unnecessary, because generally that is the skill set. There is nothing, there is no other skill sets which is there, which is necessary.
Okay, sir.
I don't
Okay.
think any kind of skill set is necessary for
Right. Right. So that's interesting. And Dr. Mehrotra, the question is, you talk about digital maturity. Abhi zindagi mein maturity hai nahi, mobile mein kahe ko maturity aayega? So that's a big question I would ask, because this is a much more digitized world where Facebook birthday, I mean, I really know of a case where they were engaged. फेसबुक में बर्थडे विश में जो केक दिया था उसमें तुमने लाइक नहीं किया, the engagement got broken. So it is real. So what is, please explain your concept of digital maturity in short.
Okay, sir. The term digital maturity index talks about the maturity the school, the stakeholders have developed over the march of time for using the digital environment, the climate in the school, and the takeaway from it. I also talk about it in terms of digital body language and in terms of their online reputation management, both from the side of the teachers and the students as well. Now, the terms relate to the maturity of the usage of the digital body language and the digital quotient. Now, these words are very clear when we regard it to their general English term. And if I say that I moderated on these as a priority, it's with experience of all the teachers over 2 years of time. Now they are well placed, capsuled in that environment. Now the revisit which is required is to be better on the stroke. Now with the inception of AI being handled by all the teachers, integrating AI concept by the physics teacher, by the English teacher, and even by the history teacher, incorporating the concept of AI, and I would actually, have a special mention of the CBSE. They have coordinated with Intel, and now the teachers are being trained. They've been trained for continuous. I also had my teachers trained well, and that has revisited the very platform of teaching and also the preparedness the teachers need to have. In fact, all the three stakeholders, including the parents, for this digital maturity. They're talking about these platforms like they're talking about the dishes and the very initiatives at this platform. So it is high time.
We'll get into that. I think you have given a fairly succinct answer to Sarada Chandrasekaran. Now we'll focus a little bit on NEP. Will NEP bring school education to global standards? It should be a short answer. Akash Agnihotre, I want to take as many questions as possible. NEP global standard, Dr. Sarada.
Sir, I feel that yes, NEP will bring the whole learning to a global standard, provided Kashmir to Kanyakumari, Ran of Kutch to Mizoram, everybody who is living in this country take NEP seriously. Everybody understands and everybody follows it to the T. And they practice it to the T, then we can bring it. But that is what
you'll make a good politician by saying
if I can add a line, sir.
Yeah, please go ahead. I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you. Yeah, quickly.
We need to craft a national strategy to integrate technology in education.
Strategy bhi aa gaya. The moment I hear NEP and strategy, I get very scared. I'm from the army. When we talk about VUCA strategy, etc. Yes, Dr. Sarada, complete it.
Yeah. So when I talk about it, yes, sir, you said that I can become a good politician. Yes, as far as the policy making and policy implementing is concerned, there is a lot of gap comes there. So whenever we are making, there is a lot of gap. And understanding, and deciphering the whole concept and implementing it is the largest gap we find. And added to that, that particular demography of the area, that and economic viability, acceptance, all these things do matter. That is why I said to the T, because everybody must understand if you want this to go. And today, whatever is our condition, like if everybody talks that America has already opened the schools, in every world, every country opened, and even in India, we are the ones who are sitting behind. But if you look at the population, look at our population, what a mammoth-sized country we are, and the kind of problems we are facing. In such country, we need to keep everybody in mind, and in that time, when we have to talk, whether we'll become a success with NEP, everybody, this 130 crore should understand and do it. That's what I mean to say.
Yeah, 130 crore understanding. I think Goddess Saraswati will have a lot of questions how to make all of them understand. Okay, we'll go further to this. Now we get into some solutions. Dr. Usha Reddy, we have already a digital divide. The digital divide is exacerbated. Economic divide, there has been a carnage. There has been huge challenges. Now let's look at solutions. From where you are, from your experience, what are the three things we all should do? And three means I'm looking at three people. The schools as an entity, teachers as an entity, and government as an entity.
Okay. Thank you. I think we all understand that education is a concurrent subject. And, the center will say something. And, unfortunately, the states also must be, in tune with that. Otherwise, things don't happen. I don't like to waste my time on politics. And if you ask me as an educationist, what can be done? I, as a person and a group of principals, what we believe in is that we wet the whole NEP and see what are the things we're already doing, what are the things that we ought to do, and get ahead and do it. For everything, we don't need government permissions and sanctions. Now, bringing about this awareness itself, I think, is a service that we all should undertake. Now, when it comes to the teacher's point of view also, there isn't very much that the teachers in schools like ours actually need to get worried about, other than perhaps the professional development that is there, it's getting a little...
I'm expanding the question. I'm not asking you only in terms of your school. What I'm saying is the big picture. We now have a digital divide, exacerbated. We now have an economic divide. The pandemic is doing its carnage. What are the three main challenges school systems will face? Keep the NEP aside now.
Okay, so I think, one of the challenges is that we've come from a nation where you can do things online and get your B.Ed and get ahead and get your teaching jobs. Right now, with that big, massive change, and I hope it's going to get implemented very, very severely, the best of brains, as they said, from the, will get into the teaching line, and it will be a 4-year course. The quality of deliverables will definitely get better. The respect and the quality of that B.Ed education and people wanting to give it back to their own country, I think, is a great thing that will happen. The other thing that I feel, because of the divide, you're also talking of research being very low in India. With the research foundation being set up, the university level will also go back. And they're insisting that every person who is at the research area will have to also contribute to rural sector. So that's something that I really like. And I think that will bring about a positive change.
Right. Captain Sen, your take on NEP. Quick take on NEP.
You see, this is a landmark, document which has come after 34 years, and it is actually which is aligned to the requirement, demand of the 21st century. All the stakeholders, like your parents, the government, the management, and the teachers, the school and the teachers, if they are serious, the NEP is very much, it is achievable. Whatever has been dreamed in NEP is very much achievable, and the government has to do its bit. The teachers, especially the management has to train the teachers, and there's a lot to do actually. The commitment of the promise of the government switching over from 2.5% to 6% should actually come in reality. That's the most important thing.
Sir, are you an astrologer? 2.5 to 6% during the pandemic. I think Jesus Christ, Allah and Buddha cannot do it together. There is simply no money available. Now come to the skeptic, Dr. Sarada. The big challenges, 2022, June schools reopened. Where do you find the challenges of digital, economic, as well as learning divides? And I would add gender divides, which he said, I wish we had more time to discuss that.
Number one divide, economic divide, because many children, regret to say, are losing their parents. There is. This is the case which is happening, or that the parents are losing their jobs. Any one of this economic divide is going to become bigger, number one. Number two, the schools are going to have a problem of collection of fees, which will continue because of this economic divide. And the struggle will become more and more. This is one. And as far as digital divide is concerned, this whatever learning, online teaching, digital virtual learning has come into picture will continue, because this has brought in a kind of a comfort zone to quite a lot of people. So this will continue, and people will go for blended learnings, and many of the meetings will become virtual, and many of the PTAs and PTMs and CPZs, everything will happen virtually, so everybody can attend from wherever they are, and people will forget the social norms. The major challenge the schools will have is the bringing back the social norms and social communications and social etiquette and social quotients. This is the major thing.
I wouldn't even use the term social. I would say dignified human behavior. Students have forgotten to say good morning and namaste. And they have even forgotten, as that joke came about. A student was traveling with his father. He saw a huge building. Papa, is building ke saath mera pichle janam ka rishta hai. And the child is beaten up and says, "Abey, ye tumhara school hai." That's a big challenge. So I'll go further to that, in this whole picture. One, this is to Dr. Dheeraj Mehrotra. Will you go to a dentist who has learned root canal online? Will you go to a surgeon who has learned his surgery online? Are we going to see a major gap in any kind of learning? Dr.
Well, that's a concern for sure. But if I don't go, I will be blowing myself to being a teacher, because I am teaching online, delivering and giving that motivation to my students. So that belief factor, that belief quotient has to be developed.
How will you?
Well, for sure, that has to be an experiential learning.
How will it happen?
Yeah, that obviously will be regarded as not that easygoing, for sure. And for that reason, we will be having a smarter protocol to have it done. Just like people are playing cricket, just like the Olympics are being held, so will be the learning, experiential learning, gaming. We are having gamification of education,
yes,
and
sir.
the learning is being departed in a big way.
Yeah. I'm not sure whether I am entirely sure it will happen. I'll throw it up to the lady, Dr. Usha. These challenges, the huge learning gaps which are happening, the skill gaps which are happening, how do we overcome that?
Well, I think, if you're looking at even medical colleges, they do have virtual surgeries. Today the thing is that they don't operate on, corpses and then learn, but they do a lot of it even before the pandemic virtually. And I was witness to this when I went to Oxford, where we had a team of doctors actually talking to us about their learning like this. So I would look at it that for me, my major concern is I'm not worried whether a child will get back to writing. That can be managed. Whether the child who's missed 30% of the portion, that can be managed. But what I'm really concerned about, the number of emotional trauma and psychological problems that have set in, fear factor, agoraphobia, the fear of if I get out of my house, what's going to happen? How will these children come back in the same frame of mind to school is definitely my concern. So I think as an educationist, first I will say the emotional well-being of the child, physical well-being of the child, and the social well-being of the child, and then the academic well-being of the child.
Absolutely. Socio-emotional cultural well-being. And the last question, which I'll try and tackle, and this is building up on what I saw. 70% of our teachers have had COVID, or somebody in their family have had COVID. 100% of them know at least 2 or 3 people who in their family have had COVID or even had death. The vast majority of the students have had their parents or people in the inner ring afflicted with COVID. Do we know what is grief? Do we know what is grief management? How do we move this forward? Quick answers from all the panelists before I go for concluding statements. First, to you, Dr. Sarada, 30 seconds.
First of all, sympathy, empathy, both will work. And grief management is first understanding and accepting and giving a lot of listening and developing listening skills. That's what I said. Empathy, sympathy. Both are the mantras.
The teacher herself is struggling, and I was asked a question. I have lost my father-in-law. I have lost my nephew. You want me to be thinking positive? How can you do it? And she burst into tears. I'm asking the bigger challenges. Yeah, I'm pushing you. Yeah.
Yeah. Now you, sir, actually, as a school, I should have, or I have at present, is that counselor. Now I have to enlarge make the whole counseling session a big session, a big group of people, and everybody must be listened to. When I'm talking about listening, empathy, sympathy, it's not only for children, for the teacher, for the principal, for even the PT sir, or the art and dance, and anybody, inclusive of the gate man who is standing. For everybody, there is an empathy, sympathy required, and we need a counseling team. We need to have counseling sessions, mental wellness sessions, and we need to be available to everybody. Give a lot of room for them to come back to normalcy. Accept them as they are till they come back.
Accept them as they are. Captain Sen, from a residential school perspective, how would you handle it? Quick answer. You're not audible, sir. You have to unmute yourself.
I must share that not in my school, but in our trust, other schools, Birla schools, which are there, we have lost 4 teachers who are serving teachers we have lost in COVID, and even we lost one of the ladies also. I have lost 2 sub-staff, that is the class 4 employees which are there. And first of all, I will look at myself. The principal himself has to change. There is no doubt. There is no choice. If you have to survive, the schools have to survive. If you want your teachers to, do their job and all this thing, I have to change. I have to recalibrate my thinking. That is most essential. If I do that, the sympathy and empathy will be automatically, it will be effective. And that's the only way, what Dr. Sarada said, that's the only way.
Wonderful, sir. I have only 1 minute, quick answers. Dr. Dheeraj, 30 seconds.
Well, sir, I would say that we need to teach our children to be kind and practice acceptance. And that is what is the priority for all of us.
Practice acceptance. Yes. Dr. Usha Reddy, from a very...
I think for me, more than empathy and compassion, it is moving into, action mode. And so apart from the counselors, you also have your school cabinet, who form their own teams, and then we try to do the counseling. So one large thing that we have done is to have a particular time in the evening where a parent, student, or teacher can enroll into a meditation session, positive thought infusion, for largely praying for everybody and anybody in this world. And I think this pedagogy of gratitude has actually helped a lot of them recover.
Great. That's a good time, good word to end this session on. We always say thank you, dhanyavad, and we always say aabhar for gratitude. So my aabhar to all of you for having made discussion so very interesting and interactive. To you, Captain Sen, to the ladies, Dr. Usha Reddy and Dr. Sarada, to you, Dr. Mehrotra, thank you so much. That's been a wonderful discussion. Thank you for your time and patience. And to all those who were listening in, thank you for your commitment to this discussion. God bless you. Back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sekhar sir. Thank you for this wonderful moderation. So, a small token of appreciation from the World Education Summit side. I request Aman, can you present the speaker certificate to our speakers? So, this speaker certificate is given to our speaker and the moderator, Lieutenant Colonel A. Sekhar, Chief Development Officer, Jagran Education Foundation. Thank you, Sekhar Saab, for giving your precious time to us. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर. Captain Alokesh Jain, Principal Birla Public School Pilani. Thank you, Alokesh Jain sir. Thank you very much for giving your time to us and enlightening us to your
Thank you.
To Dheeraj Mehrotra, Principal NPS International School Guwahati. Thank you, Dheeraj Saab. Thank you very much for giving your precious time to us. To Dr. Usha Reddy, CEO, Meridian Group of Schools, Hyderabad. Thank you, Dr. Usha. Thank you for being at 19th World Education Summit. Thank you. Dr. Shraddha Chandrasekaran, Director, Whitefield Global School, Bangalore. Thank you, Dr. Sarada. Thank you very much for giving your precious time to us. And I request all my audience to please follow our speakers on their social handle. If you have any other query, you can directly ping them. You can directly ask your questions to them. They are pretty much active on the social handle. Please ask some genuine questions. Please don't put any random questions to them. Until then, goodbye and thank you very much to all our speakers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.